Greetings, and welcome to another video from oduclass.com. In this video, we're going to take a look at the purchasing application. In the previous video, warehouse management that we did last week, we really just installed the warehouse module all by itself. This time, I installed purchasing, so you're looking at a brand new installation here with purchasing only installed. But you'll notice also that the warehouse is here, so I'm just going to explain a little bit about that in case you're not familiar with the dependencies that are required. When I installed purchasing, I'm going to type it in here so I can find it. Or I think they say purchase management. So, yeah. What's going to happen is in these, when you install them, there's always dependencies within these, and you'll notice that you can't see here what these dependencies are. If we go down to apps and type in purchase again, part of this is like if I would have to actually uninstall it, I guess, at this point to see the dependencies. Actually, always whenever I do a new install, technical features, we're just going to do this here. I think not doing that is probably why I wasn't seeing everything that I would have expected to see when we look back at purchasing. And certainly that's what it was. Okay, so you saw that before we couldn't see these tabs, and it was because I didn't have the technical features turned on, even though I'm an administrator. So whenever you install a new database as an administrator, you just might as well get in the habit of going in and turning on those technical features. But what I wanted to show you here is some of the information here. You'll notice it added at the top here the information about it if you wanted to go to Odoo and find out more information on the purchasing module. And then here you have the technical data where it shows all of the views it's created. But most importantly, what I wanted to show you is these dependencies: stock account and report, and then you can also see the installed features here and the defined report. So this kind of shows you inside of your configuration what is created when you install this module. And you'll notice that there's a dependency now down here, the dependencies. Now I don't want to get too much into this, but if I click this dependency, you'll notice that it has a dependency. So stock account is dependent on WMS accounting, and so if I click that, and you'll see it in the background show up here, we can see that this is really the new accounting module of Odoo 8. They've renamed it WMS accounting. Now if we click on this technical data, you'll see that it has dependencies as well, as including stock. And so if I click on stock, this gets me to the final place where I wanted to get to, where you'll see that we have this dependency of warehouse management. So in the previous video, we installed this warehouse management by itself. That's all we installed. And in this video, I started out by just installing purchasing. But because of the way Odoo works, it sees these dependencies. And so the purchase management knows it's dependent on the stock account. And if I click that, it knows that this particular module is dependent on WMS accounting. And then it knows in here that WMS accounting is dependent. I might have gotten us backwards. I should have said this. This is the dependency. Warehouse management is the dependency of stock. Now, this is somewhat important to understand, because when you install an application, what that means, and when we go back and look at these modules, that warehouse management is installed. And when I came into this video, all I had installed was purchase management. This module right here, and so it automatically installed the warehouse management features as well. And one of the things you can do is go up here under filters and click installed, and now it'll limit this to all the apps that were installed. So we got our warehouse management, we got our purchase management, and why don't we see the stock and all that? Well, in the other dependencies, it's because we got apps checked. So if I uncheck that, now you're really going to see everything. So there's our WMS accounting layer. If we look further down, we should see stock in here somewhere. But what I'm trying to get to show you is that when you're functionally using Odoo and you're working with different modules, it's important to kind of know what dependencies you have to work with. So with that said, let's move on past that, but just realizing that when you install purchasing, you're also going to get warehouse management. It's going to come with it. And like I said, we already have a video available for warehouse management. You can find it right on the website. Probably should be right next to this video. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to work with purchasing, and we're going to first look at the purchasing module, and then we're going to do a little bit on how it integrates and flows into this warehouse application that we worked in the last video. So purchasing, you'll notice that when you click on it by default, it's going to bring up this request for quotation. So this is where you would create a draft purchase order to purchase goods for your company. Now, this is a new installation. I always like to start out fresh, so these videos are somewhat self-contained. So I'm going to go down to products, and we're going to be a toy company today, and it's Christmas coming up. Buy some toys. So let's say race car is one of the products we're going to have to buy. And you'll notice down here, one of the first things is that you have to decide whether this is going to be a stockable product, a consumable, or a service. Now, the most important thing, if you go over here to the product type, it's going to give you a little bit of information, and it's the most important things to know. If it's a consumable, there will not be stock management on this product. In other words, it's not going to track inventory flows between the purchasing, the warehouse, and then to delivery orders and quantity on hands, or really any kind of valuation. If it's a stockable product, then of course there's going to be stock management. They don't give you the information here for service. It's kind of absent. But service would also not imply stock management. And it would imply also that it is not a physical product. It's something that you would do, labor, things like that. So service would be a good product for, like, if hair salon, a haircut. It would be an example of a service product. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's important to go through. This is a purchasing video, so we want to make sure that we cover everything. So let's say we're going to sell this race car for $25 or whatever. Now, we're right now starting this out with that we're purchasing a finished product, and most likely you're going to be selling it as a finished product. So we're going to keep it simple, but obviously we're going to make the examples a little more complex as we move ahead. So now if we go to procurements, and this is important in setting up a purchasing system, is that you're going to want to put in a cost price. So now if we're selling it for $25, we better, in a retail environment, we're going to need to get it less in overhead. So let's usually, let's say we're going to get it for $14. And you'll notice once we get here, we've got under supply chain information 2 routings that come in by default. And you can look at the help here, but it's a little bit, it doesn't really tell you what these are for. It just says this will allow you to choose what you want to do. So what's really happening here is if you have a buy routing, that means this, just like it sounds, you're going to purchase this from a supplier, and it's going to route this product into your warehouse. And that's what the purchasing module is going to, with this routing, provide that functionality. And then so the question is, what does make to order mean? Well, what make to order means is that if you have sales management installed, that then when a sales order is confirmed, then if this is checked, it will automatically create an order for how many ever is on the sales order. It'll automatically make a purchase order that essentially matches this particular product on your sales order. So let's talk about a scenario. If you're buying to stock and you want to keep 200 race cars on hand and just have them available because you sell them a lot, say this is a product that you want to stock, you want to keep many of, then that would be appropriate from a business case standpoint to choose the buy routing, because you want to keep certain levels. And we'll talk about levels under the reordering rules here, but what this is saying is that we're going to try to maintain a certain level of this in stock. If there is a sales order, it's going to look to stock to acquire those goods. No purchase order would be created with this routing if there's a sales order. In other words, a sales order will not trigger a purchase order with this. It just looks to stock. If you choose make to order, then regardless of how many you have in stock, you could have 100 of them in stock. If you choose make to order as your routings, then what's going to happen is it's going to make a purchase order regardless of how many you have in stock, because you're saying make to order for this product. It's going to make one, or essentially purchase one. Okay, so now you'll notice there's the can be sold and can be purchased. I want to just talk about them a little bit. And the can be sold, when we're talking about can be sold, in this case that's obvious. We're wanting to sell this race car. We're purchasing it as a finished good. However, if you're purchasing in a manufacturing environment, the can be purchased here might be the only button checked. For example, if you were buying glass, for example, and you were going to put that into an end product, then you wouldn't say, you would uncheck this can be sold for that specific application, because you're not going to sell the raw materials. You're just going to use them in another part. But in this case, we need to purchase this so that we can sell it. It's basically just passing through our warehouse. So now you'll notice here at the bottom that we can create our suppliers for this product. Now, what I want you to know as part of this video is that these suppliers are optional. And so I want to show you that and demonstrate that. So we're not going to actually hit add an item here at this point. We will go back and look at this, but I want to demonstrate that this is optional. This is a way to assign suppliers and allow different lead times, and as you can see, minimum quantities, so that if you have automated purchasing implemented, that it can determine which suppliers are best to fill that order. And obviously there's a specific description for suppliers that's going to come in handy in many circumstances. You might want to your suppliers are going to want to talk to you in the language they're familiar with. And internally, and that's what this is, internally you might have a completely different set of notes describing this. For example, this might include something about packaging. Maybe a bad example depending on your business environment, but this is considered internal descriptions. Procurements is your descriptions for your suppliers, And now if we look over here under sales, you'll see that there's a description that's essentially for your customers. So now we're getting a little bit, away from just purchasing when we're talking about these, but let's be clear, under this procurement, which is the primary purchasing form here, this description here would be how you would want to communicate this product information with your suppliers. So with that, let's go ahead and save this race car, and let's just go ahead and create a purchase order. I believe in starting simply, so we're going to go here for request for quotation. Like in other videos, actually I'm going to go here under purchase orders, and I'm going to hit create. And you're going to notice we don't have a supplier here, so I'm going to hit create and edit. And most of the time your suppliers are going to be companies. I mean, it's possible you might have individuals as suppliers, and there's business scenarios where you can get around some internal things by making people suppliers. It's actually inevitable in some companies that even employees that work for the company might end up somehow becoming a supplier if they are somehow, like, for example, it can be as simple as reimbursements in some workflows, for example, of where the employee needs to be cut a check out of AP rather than out of payroll, would be an example of where you might not have a company as a supplier, and in fact that supplier would be internal. But let's say in this case it's going to be Acme Toys is going to supply this this particular race car, and we'll just throw in a couple of numbers here. And this should all be familiar with all the plenty of other videos we have that you can fill all this in. We're going to hit save so that it'll fill our supplier in. Now, supplier reference will typically in a business scenario is going to be their quote number. So if you've already talked to them and they've given you a price, or they have given you some document that says, this is what your bid is, you might type that number in here. So it might be Acme quote 9582. So this would then reference back to the quote in their system where they've provided you. In this case, for a race car, remember we can just type the letters out and it's going to fill it in, and there's our unit price and our quantity. And we're going to order, since we're selling these things, we'll order, most people would probably do round numbers unless there's some other reason. So we'd say we're going to order 250 of these. Now, taxes, purchasing, obviously you should do a video that specializes on taxes. In a lot of situations, particularly in the US market, you do not get taxed on purchases in which you're going to resell. So in this case, we're focused on purchasing. We're going to keep it simple. You'll notice by default it fills in the order date, and you'll also notice down here that it's filled in a default schedule date. Now, this default schedule date can be important because parts of the inventory system are going to track efficiency, how late you are, timeliness of deliveries. And so if you know that it's going to have a 3-day lead time, it's going to take a little while to get here, then this essentially is when you could almost say expected arrival date of when you're hoping to receive this product. So we could go in here and make it the 10th, for example. And now you can hit update if you need to just see the price. And so you can see we have a $3,500 order here. And so we're going to hit save. Now, I've done this in probably a couple, 3 other videos, but I think it's important in case you haven't seen them. That you'll notice here we're under purchase orders, and I have a request for quotation. That's where I created it at. So then it might be natural to come here and hit purchase orders and go, what happened to my purchase order? I lost it. It's deja vu for many of you if you've seen my other videos, but what's happened is it's still in a draft mode. So it's up here under request for quotations. Whether you create an order here or you create an order here, you are doing exactly the same thing. There's no difference in that functionality between this menu and that create button. What the difference is this record is in a draft state. This is in a draft mode. Now, purchasing can become a complex process, and what I'm going to try to do is give you a good overview that we can get through, and it's you don't have to sit here and watch hours and hours and hours. We'll make more advanced videos. So this is kind of like purchasing 101, and later we'll come back and do more advanced videos. But I am going to discuss what this means over here, the send RFQ by email and the print RFQ. What this is a request for quotation, and it's actually formed in this way. And what you would use these buttons for is if you're not convinced that it's just Acme Toys that you wish to purchase these from. Instead, you might want, and you can see bid received on and bid value, you might want to have multiple suppliers bid on these 250 race cars. Perhaps there's 5 or 6 different distributors you can get these from, and because there's enough quantity, you believe it's worth the time and the resources to do a request for quotation in which you would send this out to maybe 5, 6, 10, or how many ever suppliers to see if you can which one will give you the best price or the best terms. And then you can go here in this tab, you'd edit it and go ahead and put in that the date it was bid was we haven't received the bid yet. You'll notice this is blank and it knows we haven't received it, but we can say that it'd be valid until a certain date. But if you hit this, we're going to skip this now, but if you did hit this print RFQ, it's going to change the workflow so that it's going to go here to the RFQ and wait for the bid to be received. And then when you receive the bid, it's going to go here and mark that the bid's received. So we might go into this a little more detail. If anyone's confused, email us and we'll go further into what this RFQ bid received component means. But what's going to happen is if either of these buttons are pressed, then you're saying that I really am not working with one supplier. I want to get multiple suppliers. I want to take bids, and I'm going to receive bids and mark which ones are received. And then once you've found the bid you want, you're going to confirm the one you want to choose. And so that's what we're going to do with this. We're going to, in this case, just purchase from Acme Toys, and we're going to confirm this order. So when I hit confirm order, you'll notice it skipped over these because we didn't send out a request for quotation. We just went ahead and purchased. And you'll notice now that it shows that purchase order, number 1. This is a brand new installation. And just get it on here so we can see this. You'll notice that even though we're on request for quotations now, we kind of have the reverse effect. If I hit request for quotations, now it's empty here. And in order to see this purchase order, we can see it now under this menu. And you'll see that our purchase confirmed status is on. So now you'll notice that here I'm not seeing our source document. I see supplier reference. So just so that I want to explain this here. You'll notice there's no place for source document here and here. So what's up with this source document? It's in the list view. I'm sorry. Yeah. What this would mean, and it actually tells you right there, is if a sales order had created this request for this purchase order. So somebody buys 5 race cars, and you have inside of the race car this make to order button, then it's going to create that purchase order And inside of your purchase order here, you'd see your sales order number listed. And again, we will keep getting more advanced, and we'll do likely another video where we'll bring sales management in, and we'll focus on sales management and then show how that ties in here to purchase orders. So now, once we've confirmed, you'll notice, first of all, obviously we're on purchase confirmed here, but we've also got one in shipments and one invoices. So once you've hit that confirm button, two things have happened. Two documents have been created. You get a shipping, incoming shipping document in shipment. So I can click this and see it. This is the transfer waiting for these 250 race cars to come into stock. And you'll notice that it says available. Now, what that means by available is that it's ready here to receive these products when they show up at your dock. It doesn't mean that it knows they're here. It means that for this purpose, in this particular document, it's available. And you'll notice if I put my mouse over this, it's showing the statuses there: new, waiting another move, waiting availability, available, and done. When you're purchasing from a supplier, there is no waiting for availability. Waiting for availability or waiting for another move, those would be applicable to a manufacturing process. So you have a manufacturing order, it could have a status waiting availability. A delivery order, for example, where maybe they've purchased the race car and they're not in stock yet, then you would be awaiting availability. But because this is from a supplier, it's coming from a supplier, and the destination already filled in is going to go into your warehouse stock location, it's assumed it's available, meaning that they are going to basically are available to send it to us. So now this is in a waiting point. Before we look at this, let's jump back to the purchase orders. I'm going to remind you, if you haven't seen it in another video, that you got breadcrumbs up here that you can go back to the purchase order by clicking it. Never use this back button. Just another little tip. Just stay away from up here, and that probably goes for any web application. But you'll notice that was the other document. The other document you're going to get is a draft invoice, because if you purchase something, there's a really good chance you're going to have to pay for it. So a draft invoice gets created. You'll see that in this draft invoice that the payment reference that we had here gets pulled through. Our source document gets pulled through, so we know the purchase order it came from. And we have our supplier information and all this and so forth. But you'll notice we don't have an invoice date, we don't have a due date, and that this is a draft invoice. So now we're going to go ahead and do the invoicing side, because we're already here, and finish up this part of the workflow. So now when I hit validate invoice, so we're going to assume that, in all honesty, I'm not going to do this in the order that I just said, because you know, in most cases, in order, the ideal workflow is a three-way match between the purchase order, which we have right here. I should have used a breadcrumb as an example, but we have our purchase order right here. We have our incoming shipment right here. And then, of course, we're going to have our invoice that hasn't been validated yet. So I'm going to kind of show you a typical workflow that gives you controls of how you would do this ideally. So you don't really want to validate that invoice and create an AP, accounts payable, until you've got the product. I mean, that would be an ideal situation as a purchasing system, that you're waiting for these to come in, and you got your 250, and we're going to assume that the order arrived correctly, and we're going to say then therefore transfer. So when the product's arrived at the dock, somebody's ready to receive it, they're going to look in the box, they're going to count them up, do some kind of assurance that this is what is expected, and so we click transfer. Now it's going to bring up another screen here. And the reason that it does this, a major reason, is that sometimes there's not the full amount. Maybe they only sent you 230, you count it up and it's wrong. But in this instance, we're just going to do a full, we're going to assume they're all there. We're going to keep it pretty simple for this, initial purchasing video. And you'll notice our source location is partner location suppliers, and our destination location is warehouse stock. And if you remember, in our other video, in our warehouse video, even if you haven't seen it, I'm going to explain a little bit about it here, is that every transaction of moving product in Odoo involves, much like in accounting, a double entry. In other words, it's always going to come from somewhere, and then it's going to go somewhere else. If in every situation. So we're pulling 100 from a supplier location. This is not our location, but it's pulling 100 from there, so then we have 100 to put here. And that's going to work this way throughout purchasing and through warehouse management, out through delivery orders. There's always going to be a double entry. If you're pulling from one location, just like you would think in accounting, that'd be if you're pulling from one account, you're going to have to debit one account, you're going to have to credit another account. In this case, where you could say in accounting terms, we're putting a debit against this account and a credit against this account, or whatever would be the signs for that account. But you're always going to have coming from one location to another location. So we hit apply, and you'll notice that it jumps right to transferred because we did them all. We don't have partially available or anything like that. So now this is done. These are in our warehouse. We've stocked them in this location. Toys are arrived, they're on the shelf. So now let's go back and look at our purchase order again, and now let's look at our invoices. Now, we have our 250 quantity here, and we have our amount here. So from a business standpoint, before you click this validate, your AP person naturally would want to make sure that the purchase order for 3,500 and 250 units matches, and it's right there to see it, the 250 that were received and is done, and that matches 3,500 and the 250 that you've received here. This is called a three-way match. That your purchases, what you expected, I'm going to click the birdhouse, what you expected to pay, what they quoted you and you've committed to, naturally needs to match your invoice. You don't want, if this isn't matching, there's a problem. But it's not just that. You also got to make sure that they arrived, that you actually got the product, and that's where you want to do the three-way match against your shipments and make sure this number here, the 250, that you receive the right quantity. Because if you didn't receive all you're supposed to, if there's a discrepancy here in the receipt, you certainly don't want to come over here and hit validate on that invoice and tell accounts payable the next step that you owe 3,500. But like in this case, when they all match, which hopefully that's the rule and that it's an exception when this is off, when that's all correct, you hit validate. And now we actually have an open invoice, meaning that our accounts payable now has gone up and we owe this money. We actually owe this, and it's no longer in a draft state. Now, at that point, I think I do want to go here and spend just a bit, and you'll notice that we don't have any accounting visibility here. In other words, if I go to where's my GL, where can I look at my I mentioned that AP has gone up, but if I look under invoicing, I look under purchasing, I look under warehouse, and we're not seeing AP. And so I am going to take this opportunity to explain it. For most companies, I would say 99%, you're going to want to install accounting and finance. And so we're going to go ahead and do that so that we can walk a little bit closer to see what's happening behind the scenes, what they're doing by not including accounts and financing is they're basically hiding from you some of the complexities of double entry accounting. But like every time you install a module, you should probably come up here and shift refresh so that it can redo the menus. And one of the things you'll notice is that once you install accounting and finance, it essentially changes this menu to no longer say invoicing, it says accounting. So now that we got accounting instead of invoicing, you'll notice there's a lot more stuff here. And even though I haven't done anything different, I didn't change or do anything after installing the module, if we go down here to accounts and open them up, you're going to see here on our balance sheet a $3,500 credit, meaning that we're $3,500 in the hole already, minus $3,500. If we go down here under liabilities, you'll see under our credit column that we owe $3,500. Our accounts payable is up. And if you notice, I think as I'm saying accounts payable, Odoo doesn't it look like by default use that. They use the word creditors here instead of accounts payable. Now, fortunately, while you can't change this number, we've already done that. We've already made a transaction. So we're going to just see as an example here. If I go in here and I said, oh, I didn't want to use that account, I wanted to use this account, and I hit save, it's not going to let us do that. You can't change the code of an account which contains journal items. We already posted against it. So we're going to have to discard because we can't change that. But we can do is we can go in here and say we want to call this accounts payable. Because, I mean, in most of the environments I've been, we don't call it creditors, we call it accounts payable. So now if we go back, we have our current liabilities, which, it could include, the tax receipt, which we have to pay, to the government's basically a holding area. And then, other liabilities that roll up. But now this is named accounts payable, which is a little bit more typical. So let's go back to purchasing. And you'll see that our purchase order is confirmed. This does not really change regardless after you've pulled the stock. So once you hit that confirm button on the purchase order, this won't change. You're going to be working over in warehousing for receiving the goods. And you'll notice that warehousing gives you this. We can go to stop moves though to see the actual stop move that occurred from our PO. So the flow, may or may not be real obvious to people that haven't, worked a lot in purchasing. And as this is a functional video, I do want to kind of go through it one more time for maybe those out there that haven't worked a lot in purchasing and are, wanting to learn a little bit more about how to use Odoo for purchasing and get an overview. So we're going to do it a little more quickly this time. I'm going to request for quotation. We're going to pick our Acme toys. We're going to go down here and buy some more race cars. And let's just say we decided we needed another 50. I am going to demonstrate that maybe we got a better price. You can override that here. You know what the supplier references are, and we hit save. And we confirm it. So now we have actually told the system this stuff is on its way. The shipment's created, the invoice is created. We go to shipments, and at this point, this is what receiving would use. So receiving would be typically looking at this document. Now the question is, how do they get there? Because we got there from going through the purchase order system. In your business processes, what you're going to want to do is have your purchasing people, notice it shows it's late here. because I didn't change the schedule date, so it assumes it's late. We're going to do one more to demonstrate what's happening here. Create a purchase order. Accidentally hit save, and you'll notice it warned me I need these things. So I'm going to say Acme Toys again. We're going to go ahead and order just a couple more, but we're going to change the schedule date to the 12th. We don't need them today or tomorrow. We need them 5-7 days out, whatever it wants to be, and say we just need another 10. Same price. We'll just keep that and we'll hit confirm. And so now we're going to go back to warehouse and we'll see 50% late. So the one order we said we needed, and it's already that time and it's not in yet. The other order, I pushed the date ahead, so it's not late yet. So let's go, and you'll notice now we have 2 ready. So your warehouse and shipping department's going to be working, I shouldn't say shipping, I'm sorry, receiving department is going to be working from this screen. So if we go to 2 ready, we can see the 2 documents, these purchase order documents that are ready. So if you're setting up a workflow out of purchasing, there's a couple of things you can do for your users. It's going to give us a little chance to show what I think is one of the more valuable uses for the dashboard. Because typically when you're working in a warehouse and people are receiving, you want to really focus them in on what their tasks are. You don't want them having to jump around to a bunch of menus and click around and figure things out. Even just this operation of clicking here and then having to click here, you got 2 clicks already that, and 3 counting clicking on warehouse. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here, and this is just a little trick that it's in Odoo Essentials, but we're going to use it in here to show a real good use for it. And I'm just going to name this receiving. I think I spelled it right. If not, it's late. Receiving, close enough. So I'm going to hit add. And now what that's done for us is that a warehouse person, someone working in the back, can just hit here on reporting, and this is what they can have this like as a dashboard up, and as purchase orders are created, then they show up here. We're going to show one more just little simple example here about workflow of how we can make it even a little better. We're gonna do it the simple way. I'm gonna do a video later, maybe how we can do it more dynamic, where we could use some functions so you wouldn't have to type in the date. But let's say that we want to see only the ones for today. You could go up here and add a filter. For example, advanced search, and we could say that the schedule date is equal to, and we got it. Yeah, he gave us a little horizontal scroll bar here, so even though it's a little cumbersome, it's kind of nice you can get there. And we're going to say the schedule date is greater than, say, this date. And now you'll notice if I hit add condition here, it says R, and if I said R schedule date was less than, then it's a broken filter. Because if I say schedule date is greater than a certain date, and I apologize that this is over here, but that's Odoo. There's not much I can do about this. It's just too wide for this field. But if it's greater than this date R, if I had schedule date here, it's less than, say, we might want to go with the 12th or something. This filter doesn't matter because it's an R here. So schedule date is greater than this date. R schedule date is less than this date means every date, because it's gonna, if it satisfies this one, then that's going to be everything greater than this, and then of course this is going to find anything less. So how do we do that? We're just going to use this as a little example. You go ahead and apply this filter and get that filter in. Then you go back and do another one. Schedule date is less than 12/12. And then we apply that filter. So this does an and. So we've really got 4 filters. It has to be ready. The picking type has to be a receipt, meaning it's coming in. There's a lot of different picking types. It could be a delivery order going out. It could be an internal transfer. But this is a receipt of goods that's coming into our warehouse. We've said the schedule date is greater than this, and the schedule date is less than that. Now at that point, with all this here, if I wanted to, I could come up and say, save this filter, and actually make a save. Or if I was just doing this for today, I might quickly do it, and I can say receiving again. I don't know if it'll be interesting just to see if it'll add it like twice, or it'll replace the other one. It added it twice, so I misspelled it, so maybe a bad example. So, but you can see that what this means is this one has the filter on it. It's restricted based upon those extra date filters I had, and this one doesn't. So you can add these filters to these receiving reports. So the reason I'm taking the time to do this, it might seem like it has nothing to do with purchasing, but purchasing in particular needs a very streamlined workflow for your receiving department, so that when stuff is coming in, they have a dashboard, they bring it up, and they're waiting for stuff to come in. And obviously there's going to be a big line of these. Might be receiving a lot more than just these 2 things, but when one of these particular products come in, they get the purchase order too, and hopefully your vendors are putting something on the packing slips that come in with your deliveries to tell you what purchase order it comes with. You're then going to, in this workflow, transfer. So this is the person in the back stockroom transferring. This time we're going to not say we got them all. We're going to do a split order. So we only got half. Well, let's not do half, because that kind of makes it confusing a little bit for whether we're working with the ones that are here and what's not here. So we're going to say we only got 20 out of these. So I hit apply. And so you'll notice that it shows that we got these 20. And now I'm actually going to have to, I would have expected, since I said 20, that we'd see some kind of sign that there's a back order. I'm going to get back, and then it's a little disappointing to me, honestly, that it didn't update it in real time. You'll notice that I had to somewhat refresh the screen to see that there was an indication of a back order. But we're gonna work through this so you can see what's happening. You'll notice that this is limited to just ready transfers. Let's go back to our warehouse here, and you'll notice we have 2 ready transfers. And if I go to all operations, this is going to help us see what's occurred. When it's split, purchase order 2 here, and I'm going to click on it, you'll notice it shows transferred, like all of these are in. These are going to be those 20. Those 20 are done. We got them all, and there they are, and they're done. Now you'll notice that it automatically created another incoming order that's a back order to this order. So this references this. This was supposed to be 50, it wasn't. So it took the 20 in, shows them transferred. Now we've got a new ready to transfer, another open order here that's a back order of that. And when I click on it, now we have 30. Still shows the same source document. You're still easily able to tie it back. and you can click on this to see that it's a back order to this. Now, I'm going to remark about something that has nothing to do with functionality, but I think it would be nice here that if you could see the original quantity. Where's the fact that this was originally 50? You'd have to click here, additional info, and click this. Well, and even that's not telling us. So this to me is an example of something that you need to be aware of it, that it's not telling you that what the original is. You'd have to go to this source document, and it's not a hyperlink. So all in all, a bit of a weakness. I would recommend that as we look at this, that it'd be nice if there was a way on any one of these back orders to know what the original quantity is a little easier. So let's go back again and try to reorientate to the fact that if we're here, we've still got 30 waiting to come in because we only received those first 20. So let's say we get more come in, and we're going to do this again. Transfer in. See, now we only got, say we got 29. There's only one left. We'll just leave one left to get, and we're going to hit apply. It shows this is done. In other words, this is a done order. It's been transferred, and this is a done order that's in a back order to order number 2 still. So I think that's important to notice. It's not showing this as a back order to number 3. It's going all the way back to the original order, and you can click on it, and it shows that 20, which again, I'm disappointed we're not seeing the fact that there's 50 here. But it's always going to refer back to that original incoming order. Let's look at the full list again. And you'll notice that with this, we were expecting 50. We didn't get it. We only got the 20. We'll look at it. Only got the 20. Then in this one, we received 29 more, but that wasn't all of them. So now we have one more of these orders created. That's now a back order of 4. So it's like this one's a back order to that, this one's a back order to that, and now when I click on this one, you'll see we have one more left to receive. Let's go ahead and bring it in, and now you'll notice transfer. There's none left out of purchase order 2. These are the 3 we did left to be transferred. We've only got purchase order 3 left. So let's just go ahead and just transfer this one through so we have it. We'll do them all since you've seen the back order stuff already. Alright. Now let's say we've decided we don't really need those 10. How do we send them back to the manufacturer? How do we send them back to the supplier? Well, fortunately, that's very easy with this reverse transfer. So we're going to quickly just go through this. We hit reverse transfer. They give a serial number here. Now they're calling it serial number. You might consider that like maybe an RMA that they would give could be used here. And it shows here where you can create and edit and put in a serial number and a lot number and a lot of products. But we're going to skip that for now. You really don't need this. This would be as if you had a lot of requirements of serialized item, and that maybe there was a serial number on each of these race cars, and you had to say, well, we're sending back this one, this one, this one. And the reason being is that a lot of times products are returned because of defects and problems with them, and that you're not just returning, a random race car. You're returning a specific one that probably has on it, in some environments, maybe not a radio controlled car, but if it was a computer, for example, it's going to have a serial number on it. You bought 50 computers, 3 of them are bad. You're going to need to get those 3 serial numbers off and use this tool right here to say, yeah, it was this computer, and we're going to then go through and in the serial number situation tell each one. But for radio controlled race cars, unlikely. Again, if let me know if you need more advanced information on how the serial number things work. Just remember that the reason you'd use this is because you're returning a specific product. It's got a serial number on it, and of course you want to keep track of which of those went out or had to go back. Now, invoicing or no invoicing, if there's no invoicing, that means that this isn't going to create any kind of ticket or refund entry when you return these items. It's going to just basically do the stock move part of it, or you could do a refunded invoice. This is obviously going to create more transactions, have a little more complexity, so let's do one with no invoicing for now. So we're going to return these 10 items back. And now you'll notice it's in a ready to transfer state. They haven't actually gone back. They're still in our warehouse. We've just proposed a return picking to send them back. So let's go to our whole stock moves. Let's see everything that's happened. Okay, you'll notice that everything else is done. But this is red here. Why? Because it's a draft order to send back those 10 race cars. In other words, we haven't sent them back yet. Now, it was covered in the warehouse video about how to see quantities on hand. But let's go ahead, with purchasing involved, we still need to do that. So we're going to want to see, like current inventory valuation. This is just kind of what we're going to do. That we can see that we have 310 in stock. You'll notice that 10 of those are, on that purchase order 3. These are going back, but because we haven't confirmed this right here, we're still seeing them in inventory. They're still there, right? It makes sense. Current inventory valuation. We look there. These would still be in our inventory because we haven't picked them yet. We haven't really confirmed that we want to take them out. Let's just for the heck of it go. Is that a glitch? It won't let me click on that. I guess that's kind of a little unfortunate right here that this is more of just a report. It's not. It doesn't drill down here. So little disappointing, but we can always click here and go to all operations, and now we're to the clickable part of our transfers, so to speak. And you'll notice that this is receipts, so this isn't going to work for us. We need to unclick that because we have not a receipt. We got something going out, and you'll notice that out of all of our references, this is the only one going out because it's going back to the supplier. So you notice we had all these coming in, but because we have a return, now we have a destination location that's going back to the supplier, and it's in a draft state. I want to click on this. Now, what I want to do though before I actually do this, I want to give go look at our products here, and take a look at our procurements inventory actually. And you'll notice that we have 310 on hand, but only 300 available. Why do you think that is? There's 310 in our stock, but our forecasting has already said it's anticipated that 10 of these are going to disappear. So it's already said that our quantity available is really not 310 because we have a pending return that's likely going to take those 10 away from us. So let's run back here then again to all operations, and actually let's do it the right way. All operations, you'll notice here it's a delivery order. Now delivery orders are typically to your customers. You're delivering your customers, but in this case we've we've performed a return to supplier, which is still a delivery order. We got to deliver these to Acme Toys. That's where they're going. So really at this point, this is no different than if you were selling them to Acme Toys from the warehouse standpoint. the shipping standpoint. We're sending them 10 of these, right? So I click it, and let's go ahead and do the transfer, and we'll go ahead and send all 10 back. And it's done. All of our operations that we've done now, you'll see it's gone. There's nothing ready to transfer. If we look at all operations, you'll see nothing's ready, meaning that we've completed every transaction. So this is kind of your dashboard here to know what's to do. And a lot of people wonder what these are for, and there's still probably there's value in them. I don't know how much people use these, but basically, is the green means it was done on time, the red means that they were done late, and it's because of the schedule date and the back order and all that these are red, and then you can see this one's green again, meaning it was done on time, and we delivered it and sent it back, and we're done. So that's red. That's green. So these are just little mini graphs that as you do more operations, you can kind of go over them, and they're actually clickable, and it'll pull you into the detail, and then you can go back and that kind of thing. So what I did want to do real quickly is take you back to the products and look at that race car inventory levels, and now you'll notice that these two numbers match. There's no longer 310 on hand because we pulled them out, and now they went down to 300. And you can see our 300 on hand up here. You can click this, and this is just kind of interesting. It'll show you your inventory value. It groups them together because it doesn't think you want to see all that detail, but you can expand it out and actually see the valuation of all of the incoming shipments that came in to create this current stock. And you might ask yourself, why does it keep all of these individual quantities and how we received them and the order we received them? And it's a lot because they were received at different prices and different costs, and depending on your costing in accounting, whether you're average costing or whether you're standard costing, or you're doing like a first in first out or last in first out type thing when you're costing against your orders and things, that's going to affect your costing will be more affected by first in first out, last in first out, but your valuations are going to be affected by whether you're using standard pricing or you're using average costing. Now let's go back and do just a little bit more complex purchase orders. We're over our hour kind of time point, but I covered some other topics, so I think we do want to get a little further in this purchasing before we move on. Let's look a little bit at the supplier side. Now, I remember when we were looking at this products and we setting up this race car under procurements. You'll notice that even though we bought that race car here from Acme Toys, they're not designated as a supplier. So I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to add item, and you'll notice that we are required, obviously, to provide a supplier here. And we're also required to provide a minimum quantity. Well, it defaults it to 0, so ironically, even though these are purple, you can go ahead and hit save and close. So the fact they're required and you don't have to type anything in them may be a little contradictory. Obviously, if I wipe it out and I consciously wipe and try to save, then it warns me. But the minimum quantity would basically say that Acme Toys isn't going to sell you 1, 2, 3, 5. That they might have a minimum order of 100, and they might have a delivery lead time of 5 days. We'll hit save. And I'm going to go ahead and hit add item again here, and we're going to quickly create and edit and make a company called the Deb's Toys or something like that. We'll say Deb's Toy Mart. And I'm going to save that. We don't have to really fill in anything else. Remember, only the purple has to be filled in. I do want to just jump over accounting real quick, and you'll notice that our accounts payable got changed here, but accounts receivable is called debtors. We're just going to quickly go in here, change this to accounts receivable. We're just doing just like we did with the accounts payable. Now we're saving into accounts receivable. You'll notice that we can set what our credit limit is with them, you know, what they're willing to loan us, so that can be usable. You'll also notice that we can always see what we owe them and things. Or actually, this would be what they owe them. We owe them, and then this is what they would owe us. Remember, Odoo, you can be a supplier and a customer both in the same record, and this screen, this part of it reflects, this part right here in this area here reflects what their accounts are as a customer. This area right here would reflect information as a supplier. We can go down and say that maybe they've given us 15-day terms, for example, and we'll hit save. And now let's say Debs has you know, a little higher, say 50 minimum quantity, but we can get them, you know, say in 10 days instead of 5, and hit save and close. Now the supplier might have a different supplier product code, so let's talk about that a little bit in terms of business workflow. The supplier product code would be an example of if Deb's Toy Mart is going to have their own internal code. You don't want to have to change and adapt all of your internal codes that you're using to what your suppliers are using. You know, obviously you got multiple suppliers. So you've already got Acme Toys. Now we're going to have Deb's Toy Mart. We might want to keep track of them. They might have, instead of the RC Toy example we used for our internal one, it might even be something like RM for whatever happens to be. That might be the product code for them. For the RC, let's use something like, to give an example of why they might be RC medium, mid-level. I'm just trying to give you an example of how this can be completely different. RC mid-level, I don't know, soft tires or something. Maybe it's got a special kind of tire on it or something. But really what the example is here is that for Deb's Toy Mart, this is the way they refer to it internally. It could be whatever, and you would be surprised, you know, just it could be anything practically, and a lot different from your description. And this is what this supplier calls it as a product code. So we're going to save that, and we're going to save that. So now we have 2 suppliers for these race cars, right? We need to add another product. I'm going to create, and this time let's sell a Jack in the Box, and we're going to have it go, you know, stockable, and it's going to be safe. Well, that's too cheap for that. We're going to say $10 for our Jack in the Box and $5 as our cost price. And we're going to buy it, and we're gonna hit under suppliers. Let's just pick one of them. Let's just pick only Acme sells the Jack in the Box, and maybe they call it that, and maybe they call this JB. Maybe they don't have. They get them fast, maybe 2-3 days, and they don't have a minimum quantity. You can buy as many as you want of that, and we'll hit save. Now, part of the reason I'm doing this is to show what Odoo can and can't do, what happens when you create a purchase order now after this configuration. So let's go do a request for quotation and hit create, and let's pick Deb's Toy Mart. And let's go down here to add item. Now you'll notice when I said I'm showing you what Odoo can and can't do, doesn't mean it can't do it. It's just by default. You'll notice that even though we never assigned Deb's Toy Mart as a supplier to Jack in the Box, we can still buy it from them. There's nothing really that indicates to you or the end user that these products should be restricted to just what's in the supplier. So a very common customization, I've been asked to do it many times, is that when you pick the supplier like this and go down and add an item, that it restricts the products that are available to that supplier. It's, depends on your workflow. In this case, we're not going to worry about that right now, but it's part of why I do these videos is to make you aware of these little things that just come out as you're working with Odoo. That it's not a big fix. It's not that hard to say, well, if it's this supplier, restrict this product list. But by default, you can always pick every product from this list. So let's order a Jack in the Box, and there's a unit price, and here's a Jack in the Box, a race car. And you'll notice that when I pick it, this is what I wanted to show you, that in the description, because this is a purchase order, that it's using this special description. But because Deb's Toy Mart wasn't assigned to the Jack in the Box, it just uses our description. But because Deb's Toy Mart did have a special race car definition, it's going to pull that in there so that when Deb's Toy Mart receives this quote, it's using that. And you'll notice here also that it's filled in this quantity of 50. We know why that did that, because we said that's the minimum quantity. If I change it to 40, it says selected supplier has a minimum quantity of 50 units. You should not purchase less, and hit OK, and it forces it back to 50. You can't, without changing the rules, which entirely possible. You're not stuck with being able to order less, but by default, I should say you're not stuck with being required to order less with a small change to the rules in Odoo, but you are going to be required to by the default configuration. You'll also notice that the schedule date is bumped up for us automatically too. We know there's a lead time on this, so the lead time is now adjusted for us. And I'll hit save. So what does this mean? It's demonstrating to you that from a workflow standpoint, from a business standpoint, you're going to have a better control of your purchasing if you assign your suppliers to your products so that you can give them a description and an item number that matches what they would expect. You're also able to establish a lead time for that, and you're also able to establish minimum quantity. So there's quite a few things built in right there for you because of assigning the product by supplier. Now I don't have to go through the rest of this because we've already done it. This was to show you, how you work with multiple suppliers. So let's look at one more thing. If you'll notice a weakness in this current design, if I hit products, we'll go to our race car because that's the only one we have two suppliers on. That's why we did the two, yeah. You'll notice if I click on here, what's missing? Now, if you're thinking about it a little bit, what's the problem with this design here, where we have a cost of $14 and we have two suppliers listed here? We have minimum quantities, we have minimal, or lead times and different products. But what don't we have that would be quite vital? Well, I won't keep you in suspense too long, but the chances that multiple suppliers, especially if you have like 5, 6, 10, you start getting multiple ones, are going to have the same cost, that's not going to happen frequently. And you'll notice here there's no way with this configuration to set cost by supplier. So let's jump over to settings and let's look at our purchasing configuration. Now again, we want to be able to have an entry purchasing video, and then based upon feedback from subscribers, we'll do an advanced one with more stuff. We don't we want to try to get spread this out a little bit so we don't overwhelm people with just so much information all in one sitting they can't take it. But this is one of the last things I want to cover in this kind of basic videos. You'll notice some of the things that are going to be very common. Manage different units of measure for products. That's going to be very common in a lot of environments. You're going to receive something in cases, and then you're going to stock them in eaches or sell them in eaches. That's one example. You're going to use average costing instead of standard costing. This is that option. You might want to have 2 levels of approval. It shows right there that a double validation mechanism for purchase exceeding a minimum amount, and it'll installs another module actually when we do that. Manage calls for bids. You can see and read that yourself, that you can basically make and automate the handling of bids, and kind of like a tickler is sometimes what it's called, to know that you need to follow up on those bids. Analytical accounting, these kinds of things on purchase orders. We have a video on analytical accounting, so you'd want to review analytical accounting video, and then this would probably make a lot of sense to you on how you could use this. And this is basically just a simplified version of, instead of just one analytical accounts, you could actually have multiple. Under supplier features, and this is exactly what really we were coming here for. If you remember, we were trying to get pricing by supplier. So we're going to check this box right here, manage price list per supplier, and we're going to hit apply. And now let's go back to our product. Under accounting, the products under accounting, we'll get them to under purchases. Products, let's go look at our race car and procurements, and we got Deb's Toys, minimal quantity 100, you can get less than 50, so let's go to Acme Toys, and you'll notice now, look at this, we've got this this extra grid, and of course we have to be in edit mode. That's another little thing I'd like to see, is that you could jump into edit mode if you're drilled down and not have to jump back out again. But notice here we've got something that it's a really handy feature here, that not only do you get pricing, but you get quantity price breaks built in. So now we already know that there's a minimum quantity of 100 here, but let's say that they've decided that that was before you installed the special pricing module. We're going to change this to the minimum quantity is, say, 10. But if you're going to order a quantity of 10, your unit price is going to be, let's say it's going to be $9. Now I'm not really remembering the prices we set before, because this is a contrived example. But then we'll say when the quantity price the quantities get to 50, we're going to lower this now. Maybe they say they're going to sell them to you for $8.50, and when you add an item and go to, whoa, it kind of drag and dropped on me. Once you get to your 100 price, then you're going to get an $8 price. And as you tab, you can see sometimes these helps are going to get in your way, I think. And if you actually ordered 1,000, say you went all out, then you're going to get it for $6.50. So it goes way down, Obviously, everybody's going to have their own price breaks and their own quantities. We'll hit save. And then for Deb's Toy Mart, let's say it's simpler there. She just has, if you have 50, it's going to be I'm not remembering my numbers real well, but we'll say it's $9 for 50. If you order 200, then it's going to be 8. 200 or more, it's 8 or whatever. So what this means is once you get to 50, it's the minimum anyway for them, then it's going to be $9. Once you hit the 200 mark, then your unit price drops to 8, and so on as it falls through here. So we hit save. Now we got a bad cost price. Well, how much were we selling this for? Well, we were selling it for 25, so that's not too bad, but obviously our prices have gotten cheaper. So let's just kind of reflect that. Let's say we're going to say our common price is 10, and we're just making a heck of a margin on that thing. You'll notice a few little niceties while we're here that you can get to your purchase orders here. We have 4, tells us we have 4. So now let's just do one last purchase order for this video, and we'll create. And you'll notice now that it has a price list. If I pick Acme Toys, it fills it in, because we can have multiple price lists. It fills in our toys. Let's add an item, and we'll pick our race car. And you'll notice it's now gone to 10. Let's say we jump this up to 30. Did I not do it that low? 50. 100. Is this not working? Okay, so now that does concern me a bit, because we're not getting what I would have expected here on this race car from Acme Toys. You know, we set up those quantity price breaks, and we go to Deb's Toy Mart. It should have probably reset this, and it didn't. Let's delete it and add it back in. Now it got the quantity change here, but we're not getting our price changes. And so what we're going to do, just like in all the videos where we get kind of some strange things like this, I don't know, we're gonna figure that out. And I know it has something to do with price lists. I'm having a bit of deja vu on here, but part of the reason I don't stop the videos here is because I want you guys to kind of see the truth of all this, that when things don't go as planned, you got to figure them out, and I'm going to work through that a little bit. Obviously, if it takes too long, I'll pause the video, but I want you to see my troubleshooting steps. I want you to see, you know, at least how I'm going to try to figure out why that is, because it doesn't make sense to me, and perhaps we have a legitimate bug here, or at least something that doesn't work the way you would expect it. So we're going to go back down. We're going to go to our race car again here, and we're going to look at our toys, and you'll see we got our quantity price breaks here. They're all right there. And so what we've been expecting is, as I enter those higher quantities, because it knows who these suppliers are, we should see those prices you know, dropping down. And so that's what we're trying to figure out at this point. All right, so it's good why we do this, so that we can see how things don't work sometimes, so that when it happens to you and you forget a step, you'll remember this video, right? So what's happened here is that, you know, we have this cost price of 10. It did a great job in the price list of setting, you know, this up so that it's easy to configure. I should have done the other one to show you an example. It's easier to configure these, but the problem is, by default, our price list isn't using these. So you go down to price list, and we can hit on price list here and bring this up, and we'll hit edit because we know we're going to need to change it. Let's go down to default price list version and dig into this default purchase price list line. Now all these are blank, and we want to leave them that way, because what we're trying to do has nothing to do with some kind of specific product category, product template, all this stuff. We want this to be a product line we can use simply. But you'll notice down here it says based on cost price, and this is what was keeping that other the purchase orders from picking up the quantities. And you'll notice if I go down here, we have a nice little option, supplier prices on the product form. So it's real clear what this is doing. This is going to base the price based on the supplier product form. There is a price list video. You might want to go watch it. This shows here how we're going to tie in with purchasing, so that for all of the products that run through this purchase price line, because we haven't defined a product, because we haven't defined a product category, if we can see we haven't defined a product template, it's going to use them based on the supplier prices on the product form. So we hit save, and save again, and save again. Now let's jump up and go to purchasing. And let's open up one of our existing purchase orders here and edit it and delete this line item. We'll see if we get a little more lucky this time. I think Deb's has more breaks, so let's use hers. And we'll pick race car. Now that's looking a lot better. See, we got our $9. It's pulling it from the supplier price list. Let's go to 150. I can't remember what we did. Oh, don't tell me. Okay, so it pulled the first price, but we're not getting the breaks, it looks like. So I'll tell you what, it's looking like we might just have a real legitimate bug in this if that's the case. Let's do this. Let's cancel that order or discard, create a new one from scratch. And we'll use Acme Toys. I think that might have been the one with the greater breaks. We'll pick our race car. And we get our $9. I change that to 50. Yeah, see, we're just not getting our quantity price breaks. It picked up the first price, but it didn't pick up the breaks. That's, you know, just the way it's working right now. So what I'll probably do, because you can see I have them in here, and we can see that it is actually picking up this price. Deb's Toys, Acme. Let's change this a little just to see if, you know, I'm thinking to myself that, well, maybe it's a bug, maybe it's something I'm missing. Usually it's something I'm missing. You know, we're missing a step, but the fact that it's picking up the actual differences in price, I changed it to $9.50 and to $9 for one. So what we're going to be looking at is to see what changes. So we'll create a new purchase order. Acme Toys, race car, $9.50. Deb's Toy Mart, race car, $9. So we can tell that it's picking up the first break. But I think the problem that we're seeing is it's just not picking up the subsequent breaks. We should be seeing this unit price change as we get higher, you know, unit of measure changes. So I'm going to pause the video real quick and see if I can't determine if this is a bug or something I'm missing, missing a step. Alright folks, I'm back, and it does look, after just a bit of research here that I've done, that this is a bug. This is a, I wanted to bring you to the page here, price list based on supplier. And this post is actually very recent. You can see it's 11/22. You know, so we're just literally talking not even over a week ago, and it, somebody's pointing this out. Here's what they were saying here. We can use the price list based on suppliers on a sales order, but for the first price on the suppliers, other price breaks don't work. Example, and they're going through the steps right here. I add an item to the sales order. The right price appears. The price of the supplier for the first item is good. Okay, but if I change the quantity for this item, the price doesn't change according to this quantity. Should the price change when I change the quantity? And this, you know, was on the 25th. And they said here, you know, you have to purchases, and it says, let's read this again, make sure I'm not missing something. Checked and modify the default price list. By default, it's on cost price field. You need to change it to calculate price based on the supplier product form. And it says only then these quantities are calculated and correct prices are inserted. and then said, yes, it works, but only for one item. When you change the quantity for an item in a purchase order, it doesn't reflect a new quantity. And that you'll see down here, and unfortunately it's out of order, that I've posted that this is my conclusion as well. So with that, I'm going to stop this video. We've covered a lot. The configuration is there as it should be. I will do a follow-up video if this bug or issues fixed. And as you can see, there's no resolution here yet, and this was started on the 22nd. So I'm sure there'll be a solution. It is possible one of us is missing anything, but when I read this right here, there's no instructions beyond what's already been provided. So with that said, we're going to wrap this up. This was really supposed to be an hour video. It's probably a lot closer to an hour and a half. And it's a more basic purchasing video, but we got into some of the advanced things. Unfortunately, as part of this, we uncovered this bug. I am very open in these videos. I don't think anyone needs to pretend that they know everything about Odoo. There's a lot of things in this system that a lot of features and a lot of great options that are available, but sometimes things don't work as they're intended, or you miss a step, and I want to present videos that are real and show how things really work when you're trying to solve these problems. And as you can see in this case, we've kind of hit a bit of a wall. If I was installing this and I had a deadline, really had to figure it out, I do more troubleshooting. But in this case, we're going to leave it here. I will revisit it and post an updated video when there's a solution to this specific problem. Until then, let me know if there's any other videos you'd like to see, anything that you would like to see in a more advanced purchasing video that I didn't cover. Otherwise, take care, and hope to see you soon. Thanks.